Do you ever feel like the financial game is rigged? You are on nightmare difficulty while others are on easy mode with cheat codes? Today, we are exposing the actual playbook the wealthy use. Think Monopoly, where someone starts with the entire boardwalk fully hoteled while you're just hoping to buy one of those small little greenhouses. Unfortunately, that's uncomfortably close to the reality we live in because the system is skewed. But this video is not about some vague conspiracies. It is about dissecting the mechanics. Financial, property, and tax rules denser than an IKEA manual written in Klingon that systematically funnel wealth upwards. Understanding the precise mechanics is the first step in understanding the system, which is absolutely necessary for you to build your own wealth. And stick around because at the end I'll reveal the single most powerful force that supercharges all of this. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, the mechanics that keep the rich winning. Let's get into it. That feeling of being financially squeezed like the last itty bitty bit of toothpaste in the tube. It is statistically validated paranoia. In the US, the middle class has dropped from 61% of households in 1971 to just 50% in 2021, according to Pew Research. The UK data paints a similar story. It's not just a feeling, it's a documented shift. We need to start with the fundamental physics of modern wealth. R is greater than G. Burn this into your memory. If you are an economics nerd, you can even get a temporary tattoo. Coined by economist Thomas Piketty in his book Capital in the 21st Century, it is simple yet profound. R is the rate of return on capital. Money earned from owning assets, stocks, bonds, real estate. Basically your money growing more money, like little money babies. G is economic growth, which drives things like wage increases. Historically, R tends to grow faster. Think 4 to 5% a year versus G's 1 to 2%. Over time, this isn't a small gap. It's a canyon large enough to yodel into. It means that wealth derived from owning stuff, capital, compounds faster than wealth derived from doing stuff, labor. So right off the bat, the system has a built-in mechanic to increase inequality. If the primary source of your income is your paycheck, G, you risk falling behind people whose income comes from assets, R. They are basically on a financial elevator while you are slogging up the stairs. This is ground zero for the middle class squeeze, relying on wages in a system that structurally rewards capital more. We see evidence of this R is greater than G dynamic being played out globally. Remember the elephant curve that I showed you in another video? It showed income growths across the world from 1988 to 2008, highlighting who are the real winners of globalization. Let's not get into abstract lines, but instead talk about real people on that curve. Susie moved from rural China to Shenzhen. She got a job in a factory and saw her income skyrocket compared to her parents. She represents millions lifted into the global middle class, the rising hump on the elephant's back. Gary worked at an air conditioning manufacturing plant in Indiana. Automation and outsourcing saw jobs in the area decrease. Gary's income barely budged. He represents the squeezed Western working and middle class, the flat part behind the elephant's ear. Steve is a CEO or financier. Globalization opened up vast markets. His compensation tied to profits and stock options exploded. He and the global elite 1% are the elephant's trunk, riding high. This is not ancient history. It highlights how heavily the economic system over the last few decades rewarded capital over labor in the developed world, directly contributing to the feeling of middle class stagnation. So we have this fundamental R is greater than G imbalance. And we've seen it play out globally with research like the elephant curve. But how does R get amplified even further? Enter corporate tax strategies, the dark art of finance. Large multinational corporations, especially those swimming in intellectual property, think tech and pharma, like Google, who I worked for almost a decade, have become absolute wizards at making their tax bill almost vanish. Poof! They do this through using incredibly complex, though often legal, tax structures. Imagine a company earns $1 billion in Germany, a relatively high-tax country. They can use a series of intercompany payments, licensing fees for their own logo, and other arcane maneuvers to make it appear as though those profits occurred in another low-tax country. It is less like accounting and more like teleportation for your money. Now you see the profits in this high-tax country, poof! Now they're sunbathing on a beach in a zero-tax jurisdiction. And the scale of this is staggering. According to the Tax Justice Network's latest report, countries worldwide lose just under $500 billion in taxes each year, almost $500 billion. This is often thanks to companies deploying sophisticated playbooks like the double Irish with a Dutch sandwich, which frankly sounds less like a tax strategy and more like a regrettable order you would make after a particularly heavy night out the night before. Two massive impacts on the middle class. The first one is lower tax revenue. That $500 billion not collected, that's money that isn't going towards schools your kids might attend, roads you might drive on, or other crucial infrastructure projects. Services that middle-income families rely on get cut, or your taxes go up. The second reason, asset inflation. When huge companies sidestep tax bills, their profits go up, inflating their share prices. This is one of the key contributors to why R is greater than G. And this puts local businesses and startups who do pay local taxes at a massive disadvantage. They cannot afford an army of lawyers and accountants to pull off this global tax dance ballet. If you want to see the real impact of some of these tax jurisdictions, you should look at the growth in GDP per capita in Ireland compared to the UK, France, or Germany since the global financial crisis. Ireland is not a hotbed of unprecedented innovation that would drive this sort of divergence. It's largely a tax haven. And while its policies may help local Irish people, it breaks the broader European economic system. So corporate tax avoidance isn't just some abstract act by faceless entities. It directly strains public funds. But here's where it gets even more interesting for asset holders. Think about the last few years, maybe even the last few decades. When the economy hits a huge pothole, the government and central banks swing into action. They pump trillions of dollars into the system. Stimulus checks for individuals, support packages for businesses, and this thing called quantitative easing, or QE, which is basically the central bank firing a money hose directly at the financial system, lowering borrowing rates. The intention is often good. Prevent a total collapse, keep credit flowing, keep people employed. But where does a massive chunk of this newly created money eventually end up? You guessed it. Asset prices. Stocks, property, even your cousin's questionable crypto investments. If you already owned a portfolio of these assets, then you were a winner. It's like a government helicopter flying over, dropping money, but most of it lands on yachts or the manicured lawns of mansions. While regular people with tiny umbrellas try and catch a couple sprinkles that might fall their way. But the average person who nearly fully relies on that salary G, they mainly just feel the inflation that happens afterwards, after massive injections of cash erode their buying power. So the very effort to save the economy, which I support, pours fuel on the fire of R is greater than G. And that's before we even get to the digital world. It is so much easier to park digital code, intellectual property, or online profits in a low-tax jurisdiction than it is compared to businesses like a steel mill. You can't exactly email a blast furnace to Bermuda. Plus, the digital world is characterized by winner takes most, if not winner takes all mechanics. A few giant platforms, you know their names, you're on one right now, Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta, essentially become the gatekeepers of this digital world. Think of it like this, they've built a gleaming, wonderful highway that connects everyone. Fantastic, but they also own the on-ramps and they charge a toll for access. This is the platform tax. Whether it's a 30% cut on the App Store or the lion's share of ad revenue, they control the terms and dictate to businesses operating on their turf. It's like trying to open up a lemonade stand, but you have to open it up in Mark Zuckerberg's living room. Pay him 30% for the privilege of using his carpet. Let him scan your customers' brains to target ads based on whether they secretly prefer lemon or lime. Then, even if his house was in the UK, a small UK business selling to other people from the UK, somehow Zuckerberg magically turns around and tells the taxman, actually, all the profits happen in Ireland. This concentrates wealth incredibly effectively, making it brutally hard for smaller businesses to gain traction and compete. It also has a knock-on effect. It wipes out local media outlets that had local jobs and kept local advertising money circulating within local communities. The digital shift, while providing enormous opportunity, acts as another mechanism siphoning wealth upwards, away from the middle class and towards asset holders at the top. So we have R is greater than G, corporate tax gymnastics, stimulus funnels, digital toll booths. It's quite a cocktail, right? Now let's zoom into where money earned from just investments is often treated better than money earned through hard work. When it comes to income tax globally, the US is pretty unique with its citizenship-based taxation. Uncle Sam wants his cut no matter where you live. The rest of the world largely uses residency-based taxation, leading to tax shopping for the ultra-wealthy, strategically becoming residents of places like Monaco. Bernard Arnault, the owner of LVMH, one of Europe's richest citizens, famously moved from Paris to Brussels, just an hour away, to avoid capital gains tax on his enormous fortune. Even within the US federal tax system, which is much harder to escape, there are all sorts of mechanisms that support capital over labor. If you are a doctor or a surgeon earning $400,000, your marginal federal rate is 37%. If you're an incredibly wealthy heir to a fortune and you also earn $400,000 from your investments, well, your marginal rate on that is 20% plus 3.8 NIIT. That's a significantly lower amount. The tax code literally gives wealth generated by wealth a VIP discount. And that's before we talk about the enormous amount of taxes that simply go uncollected from the very top, like a forgotten library book that's overdue by a century. The tax gap. That's the polite term for the gap between what's owed and what's collected. The IRS estimates that in 2022, the tax gap was around $600 billion. This means compliant taxpayers, like you and me, often picking up a larger tab. It's like when your group project partner does nothing and still gets an A. And the ultra wealthy, many of them don't even sell their appreciating assets. They borrow incredibly cheaply against their massive portfolios. Live off those loans, assets grow faster than the interest on the loans, and voila, no capital gains tax generated for years. It's like having your cake, eating it, and then getting a tax break on the crumbs. And that's before we dive into other loopholes and tools. There's things like the carried interest loophole that allow fund managers to have their income taxed at a lower capital gains rate. And then wealth shielding tools, dynasty trusts in South Dakota, layered anonymous LLC shell companies, or things like GRATs, grantor retained annuity trust, or non-symmetrical trust structures, sophisticated legal mechanisms like financial invisibility cloaks, designed to protect vast sums of money over generations, making it harder for new wealth to compete. It's like they are playing financial 4D chess while everyone else has a checkerboard with half the pieces missing. Hey, it's Future Editing Daniel. This video was just a sneak preview of the many strategies that the ultra wealthy use to build their fortunes. In part 2, I'm going to break down the specific hacks that you can start applying to your own financial life. But as you can tell, I've highlighted a lot of these. I won't have the time to break down all of them. So let me know in the comments down below, which of these ultra wealth strategies are you most interested in learning about? I'll make sure I cover that in part 2. All of these individual tax rules, the loopholes, the specific breaks for capital, and the sheer scale of unpaid taxes from the top add another powerful layer, reinforcing the R is greater than G dynamic. But there's one final crucial amplifier. Layer onto all of this the inescapable, incredibly powerful force of time. Assets don't just grow, they compound exponentially. Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it, probably with extra fees. Combine the power of compounding with longer lifespans, especially for the affluent, those who acquired assets decades ago, when they were cheaper or rules were more favorable, benefit enormously. This is amplifying a generational wealth gap. It fuels the bank of mom and dad, where parental wealth is increasingly an indicator of child success, like getting a head start on a race because your parents own the racetrack. Time with asset ownership is a powerful multiplier of wealth and inequality. It's the universe's ultimate passive income strategy, but you need the starting capital. So we've seen the matrix. R is greater than G. Corporate tax gymnastics that would impress an Olympic medalist. Stimulus funnels that act like wealth magnets for those who already own assets. Digital toll booths that extract more than their share. A personal tax system that winks at capital while side-eyeing labor. And the relentless, unbeatable march of compound interest for those who already have skin in the game. It is a complex, multi-layered system. And frankly, it can feel so complex as though it's designed to have your eyes glaze over, so you can just give up and go watch cat videos. But don't. I don't know, maybe watch cat videos later. Self-care is important. If understanding this intricate web, this playbook that keeps the wealthy winning, is valuable to you, if it's peeled back a layer of the onion for you, even if it made you cry from the sheer audacity of it all, then please hit that like button. Think of it as a small nod to say, I get it now, I'm not amused, but I am informed. And definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you absolutely don't want to miss part 2. Seriously, your future self will thank you. Because now that we've dissected the problem like a financial frog in biology class, the next video is all about the solution. We are going to lay out the actionable playbook for you to follow to navigate this system. We'll cover the mindset shift and the practical financial moves to start tilting the odds back in your favor. That's what we're building towards. The system isn't just accidentally favoring the risk. In many ways, it is meticulously designed to do so. It is a complex, multi-layered system designed to siphon wealth upwards. But understanding the game is the first step to playing it differently. Now that you understand how these financial structures can stack the deck, you might be wondering just how powerful can some of these financial forces be? Can they even dictate what global leaders do? Well, in this video over here, I break down how the most powerful financial force in the world stopped President Trump's tariff plans in their tracks. Click on the link on screen to see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. And as always, stay sharp out there.